A very good evening to all of you. We welcome you to the SDG dialogue focusing on SDG 13, climate action titled Transposing SDGs in Context of Climate Change, Perspective of South Asia region. South Asian countries have been the most vulnerable to several climate change issues and impacts considering the region's geography, economy, and population patterns. With the COVID-19 pandemic, the region has been experiencing an array of climate change impacts, including glacial melt, forest fires, rising sea levels, mountain and coastal soil erosion, and saline water intrusion. Although all countries in South Asia are working to address climate change at the national level and have been pioneering many climate smart solutions that include various innovative community approaches to coastal resilience, scaling up the regional renewable energy and forestry. However, we all know that it is not enough. Therefore, it is imperative to educate our youth so that they can adapt similar pathways and work in cohesion where fundamental changes are needed in the way our lives are connected. Against this background, SDG Dialogue is set where eminent speakers will be giving their inputs on how climate change as a whole and education for youth in this aspect needs to be local specific in the South Asian context. We are very fortunate to have with us today our distinguished speakers, Dr. Livlin Kehlon, Senior Fellow and Associate Director of Environment Education and Awareness Area at TERI, Dr. Avdesh Kumar Gangwar, Director Programs of Local Paryavaran Siksha Sansthan in Uttarakhand, India, Dr. Muhammad Rehang Dastagir, Assistant Professor and Deputy Director, IUBAT, that's UBAT, Institute of SDG Studies and RC Greater Dhaka, and Dr. A.M.A. Saja, Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Engineering, Southeastern University of Sri Lanka. We are all very fortunate to have you all. So thank you so much for joining in. Before the discussion on the topic, I would like to give you a brief background about what kind of work we do and what kind of work the SDSN does. Before that, Sitara, could you confirm if that has gone live on Facebook?
Yes, Monni. Our streaming is working and we have quite a few participants on the Facebook Live.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me just go through the slides. Let me just introduce you, give you a little brief introduction about, the kind of work that we do. And can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what we are. This is a part of United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network and the Youth Network. So the network was set up in 2012 under the auspices of UN Secretary General, and SDSN mobilizes global expertise to promote practical solutions for sustainable development. The network, leverages global scientific and technological expertise to promote practical problem solving for sustainable development at local, national, and global scales. Today, the SDSN has 1,592 members, as you can see in the screen also, 30 national networks and 12 regional networks. So one of the regional networks, that is the SDSN South Asia Network, it is hosted by the Energy and Resources Institute in New Delhi. And some of you must be aware, TERI is an independent multidimensional organization and with capabilities in right from research, policy, consultancy, and implementation. So established in 2014, the SDSN South Asia brings together academic and policy institutions from around the region working for the sustainable development goals. And it has a very strong member base of more than now 50 organizations, including research institutions, universities, and think tanks. Let me just take you to the slides. I'll just give you a quick overview of what SDSN Youth Network and SDSN South Asia as a whole we are. So the SDSN Youth it's a program of SDSN established in 2015 to train and equip young leaders with the knowledge and resources to build a more sustainable future. With its network around, as also I have mentioned here, it has around 195 volunteers involving around 127 countries we have involved so far, and leads both global and local initiatives. Each program follows the three-step theory of change out of many strategies, that is educate and train volunteers, ideate and collaborate in communities, or name it, implement and scaling up the solution. So out of this, we have SDSN, out of many flagship initiatives, it cover a domain of areas such as education, cities, entrepreneurship, and business development. To name a few, I have just put a few of this, which is the Global School Program, where advocates go through sustainability education training in order to integrate sustainability in their classrooms. And we have the SDG Students Program, which I'm sure most of you are a part of it. Who are the participants here are also part of the SDG Students Program. And it's a global network of student hubs, and which is a hub of learning and engagement for the SDGs, as well as for the drivers of new solutions to local problems. There are now more than 82 hubs and in 25 countries through 2083 hub members so far. Then we have the Youth Solutions Program, which is we have this program, basically it features around 50 game-changing projects led by young people. And next we have is the Local Pathways Fellowship. This is a 10-month training program where young innovators analyze the local context of their cities to then develop concepts for a project or anything to implement. So for a country or for a network to achieve the SDGs, it is very important that youth are aware of the challenges involved, as they play a very vital role in their own development as well as in the communities. So one of the reason why the youth network is set up is because we believe that youth plays a very important role. So SDSN Youth in South Asia adopted this strategy basically to catalyze the engagement of young people through various institutes and organizations. And we had it since beginning. We had it in we involved institutions like countries like Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka. SDSN Youth has now more than 60 member organizations spread across these different countries that I mentioned. And these are the names that I've mentioned here. They are the universities who are actively involved and are called the SDG Students Hub that I just mentioned in the beginning in my previous slide. So these are currently the engagement that our universities have been doing with different countries. And in the past, we also have Bangladesh and Bhutan. Apart from that, we also have member organizations who are also a part of Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, including India, Nepal, and Pakistan. So during 2015, when the SDSN Youth was launched, it was basically to empower youth globally to create sustainable development solutions. The focus was mainly, to create awareness, be it, imparting knowledge, where we conducted competitions, right from photography competition to, poster making on the theme of SDGs, and, or, say building skills and competences, where, we made sure that our youth represent at the Conference of Youth in Paris, which was held prior to COP21, to conducting South Asian Symposium. So the next part would be to enabling action, which was one of the main objective of introducing the SDGs to communities of young people around the world, and to encourage these people to take ownership of the goals and explore how they can apply to themselves. and also providing tools. As you know, we have a good, education institutions definitely, play a vital role. So we have been, our one of our work is to, provide with good enough resources so that, they can take it forward and they can implement it at their own personal level. So while this has been, the primary objective for leading the network, however, from 2017, we began to pilot into, innovative interventions first, which was initially called the SDG clubs of students. And for the schools and colleges, we had campus SDG ambassadors. This, basically revolved around sharing innovative ideas and understanding on sustainability. And it basically provided us, informed us the potential of young people who are, full of creative ideas, and most importantly, they have a selfless commitment for making SDGs a reality. So, these interventions basically, it reflected how best practices are shared and taken up at a regional, national, and a global level. Therefore, being, one of the mission of SDSN Youth as well, that is to think globally and act locally. So these are the few of the pictures from, various countries, Bhutan, India, Nepal. So this all activities, we have been doing in the past. So throughout the years, the idea of the network has been to focus on, current issues and, curate activities regarding, revolving around the SDGs. So one of the, unique idea that was created by the, SDG coordinator and hub members at TERI School of Advanced Studies was the Climate Jamboree. As you can see here, they have set up an informative stall and a gaming zone in which the intent was to spread awareness about SDGs and promote sustainability. Another was, initiated, which was the Walk for Climate Emergency on air pollution. And it was right at the time of, in Delhi, where, that time the smog was, at a very high level. So this was basically to raise awareness. And next, we also have, since the time of COVID, the hubs have, tried to transform its learning spaces into digitized mediums to reach out to a large section of its target group. And this included webinars, discussion forums, opinion polls, and some of the activities which TERI School of Advanced Studies have done is, they have streamed, these are to name a few actually, there have been a lot, many activities, but these are just a few. And which are, right from S talks that they call it, which is on the key findings of, Hindu Kush Himalayas assessment, and or regarding the coal shortage in India, or, they have also streamed movies, right at the time of COP26 that was happening. And so we also have few, we have activities that have, that the hub members have done from the Kathmandu University, SDG Student Hub Kathmandu University. They run a campaign, and which was basically, for the students of classes 7, 8 up to 10 in Kathmandu. And next was, these are the, few of the initiatives that I'm mentioning. And you can see, pictures say it so, because this have been, one of the many initiatives that the hubs have been doing. And next we have also, representation from Pakistan, and that is the NUST. And it basically, they have conducted a session on how youth perceives climate action, and it was in collaboration with NUS Sustainable, and it basically prioritized on the practicalities of COP26. So realizing this, that an environmentally conscious society can be created only if youth are empowered with sufficient knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values. So TERI, which is the host of SDSN South Asian Network, has a dedicated environment education awareness group that strive towards addressing a need for education for sustainable development, addressing different sustainable issues through academic institutions or society at large. And I would, out of the many, I would just want to give you one example, which is going online, which is currently, we are doing it, which is called the Youth Climate Conclave. It's an annual program, which is envisaged as a competitive and an educative mode of action, wherein youth from across the country are being invited to participate in awareness building sessions and deliberations to present their views about issues related to climate change. Special sessions on, YCC modeled on the COP to the UNFCCC has also been held. So these are a few of the activities that have been listed. So as you can see from the pictures as well. So this is one of the, since we are talking about SDG 13, so, this is one of the example I wanted to share with you all. And as an outcome of the conclave, we have, made up a youth declaration on climate action, and it has been presented at the World Sustainable Development Forum. And in 2020, a youth pledge, which was drafted by the youth participants themselves, and it was, presented on 7th of October 2021 during the International Adaptation Futures Conference. And we also have developed annual calendar as a part of YCC because we had competitions. So we selected few good photos from that and we developed that into the form of a calendar. Also, monograph was in the form of, blogs that were selected. And so, I mean, this has been, the past year, as you all know, it has been defined by unprecedented events such as, COVID-19. And out of that, it actually demonstrates, the urgency and the importance of achieving sustainable development. And so, tools have been transformed into learning spaces into digitized mediums that we have already, shared, and we have talked by that SDG Student Hub has been doing. So one such project which TERI has also been doing is the Green Olympiad, which was initiated in 1999, and it's an online written examination, and it basically it's from classes 4 to 10. But the program has also gone online from last year since the pandemic, and hence, keeping pace with this changing times. So we feel that, it is essential that youth, they are equipped with tools and resources in order to take the, SDG awareness forward. And so, SDSN Youth itself has, developed a number of resources. You can just, get into the website and you can check their, the resources that have been, that have been posted on a daily basis almost. So one of them was the SDSN Youth Impact Report, where, because last year it marked the, 5th anniversary of SDSN Youth. And so it was developed to learn how we have been cultivating the, youth for sustainable development. So through this, there were different, through these different youth initiatives in South Asia, we were able to reach more than, I would be very happy, more than, 12,000 people, and, conduct more than 30 activities through different SDG Student Hub or through activities within the, network itself. And with these few thoughts, I would like to move ahead with our SDG dialogue, that is transposing SDGs in context of climate change, a perspective of South Asia region. And for this, we have our first speaker here today from Sri Lanka, Dr. A.M.A. Saja. He's a senior lecturer, Faculty of Engineering, Southeastern University of Sri Lanka, who will be talking about localizing SDGs in Sri Lanka and the challenges. Dr. Saja worked in the disaster management and the humanitarian aid sector as a project manager and program officer for 7 years in 2 international organizations. He worked for Humanitarian Aid Office of the European Commission, that is called ECHO, Sri Lanka and Maldives in Colombo, and where he monitored the implementation of projects in the humanitarian disaster preparedness sector in Sri Lanka, mainly in the north and east of Sri Lanka. Before joining ECHO, he worked as a resource development manager and then as a project manager of the Learning Support and Capacity Building Program of Red R UK in Sri Lanka. And in addition to that, Dr. Saja had delivered several training courses as a lead trainer, and his focus areas included disaster risk management, community participatory approaches, right-based approaches in the humanitarian sector, and project cycle management. He is currently an international fellow at CHRHS of Brown University, USA, young scientist at IRDR, China, and Global Community Solutions Fellow of IREX, Department of State, USA. Over to you, sir.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and from different parts of the world. And thank you, Wanmi, for that introduction. Let me share my screen. Right, I hope my screen is visible. Right, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to talk about SDGs and the local perspective and the challenges, which is also an important topic in the context of climate change as well. So I'll be talking about this localizing SDGs in Sri Lanka and the challenges, and I have divided my session for the next 15 minutes into 3 sections. So first, I will just talk about the context, the localizing efforts of SDGs in Sri Lanka, and then I'll be just briefly go through the challenges in localizing SDGs, as well as I'll just present some work that I've been doing in the southeastern Sri Lanka, and we'll share some of these experience, mainly with the youth, as you have been, as SDSN have been working a lot of work with youth, so it will be more relevant as well, and also with the community. So first, in the context of localizing SDGs, there have been a recent evaluation of the performance and progress of implementation of the SDGs in Sri Lanka. Well, it's not that very recent, but there have been different reports that have been published on the progress of implementation of SDGs in Sri Lanka to give you a larger context. So there were 2 reviews. One was by the national government, which was kind of a voluntary national review, and then voluntary people's review was also there in 2018. And then later, which is the latest report, which shows some of the future directions, and which also highlights key challenges in localizing the SDGs as a transformation agenda in the new normal, which means in the post-COVID context. So some of the data that I'm going to share are from these reports, just to give you a overall context, how the SDGs are being applied in Sri Lanka. So I have just picked up few key indicators of some of the SDGs, not all, because the main problem with the SDG progress and the evaluation is that there is lack of data, and when there is a data available, it's more disintegrated. So there is still a gap in the data integration. So I'm not going to go into the details of all these the contextual indicators, which is relevant to Sri Lanka, but I'll just touch where we are now. So in terms of no poverty, zero hunger, and the good health and well-being, the kind of the first 3 SDGs, Sri Lanka has been doing well, in the sense, although there are some gaps. Sri Lanka has been doing well since 2015. and also particularly after the end of civil war in 2009. So in terms of no poverty, Sri Lanka has been progressing well, but still there are gaps and there are regional disparities. And then the kind of urban poverty is also kind of increasing. There's a good coverage of social protection schemes, but still there are some challenges in terms of targeting and also adaptive social protection mechanisms. Zero hunger, in terms of that target, only around 10% of the population is moderate or severe food insecurity, but it is also seasonal, sometimes due to drought and other climate shocks or economic shocks. And health, in terms of health, and also in the fourth SDG, Sri Lanka has been doing well, and Sri Lanka has good systems for health and education. So if you look at the health indicators, the main challenge that Sri Lanka is now facing due to more urbanization, the non-communicable diseases are on the rise in the urban areas, and so it has been an important challenge. And road accidents, the deaths due to road accidents, deaths due to human-elephant conflict, deaths due to chronic kidney diseases have been a problem as well in Sri Lanka, which recently have been on the highlight. Some other indicators on education. In general, Sri Lanka is doing well on education, but there are a lot of reforms need to happen. There are a lot of pressure on reforms, particularly on value education and inequality in education, and then transforming the education for better economic growth. Some other, I think one is amazing, which is gender inequality. For example, if you combine the education and gender, there have been a problem as well in terms of women enrollment. Well, women have enrolled high in the tertiary education in the universities, but there is still a problem that women climb on the ladder further on leadership positions, still very low. In terms of water and sanitation, clean energy, there have been a lot of focus on this because Sri Lanka is covered 100% electrified, but still now the focus is more towards renewable energy sector. So there is a lot of things to talk about on that in terms of climate change as well. Some other SDGs and indicators, sustainable cities and communities have been an issue because urbanization is increasing. For example, in 2030, 80% of the Sri Lankans will be living in urban areas. So there are increasing city population, but the land is very limited. So the congestion and the problems, social problems, are going to be high. And that also create a lot of problems on waste generation, waste collection, and then disposal, as well as air quality. As you know, when we have more urbanization, there'll be problems of air quality, and that may lead to non-communicable diseases. Similarly, Sri Lanka is also on the climate hotspot. Natural disasters is one of the major threats to Sri Lanka. Sustainable consumption and production have been also an issue because the recycling of waste, if you can see, it's very less. There is a lack of mechanism at the local level for proper waste management and the reduction of the consumption of, for example, the environmental friendly products, or there are a lot of use of plastics, and that lead to many problems. For example, Sri Lanka is an island, so for example, in the coastal regions, the marine pollution is very high. For example, in the global rating, Sri Lanka is on the 5th in the marine pollution. So it's really a problem. And Sri Lanka is also a rich on biodiversity. There are 35 biodiversity hotspots. Sri Lanka is one of the 35 biodiversity hotspots in the world. Forest cover is 30%, but due to the development, there is always a trade-off between the forest or deforestation as well as the development. So this has been an issue, and this will be an issue in the future as well due to urbanization. And human wildlife conflict is another problem Sri Lanka is facing due to either encroachment of people into the elephant corridors or the elephants coming into the communities have been an issue. Right, so just to give you a snapshot of where we are in terms of some of the selected SDGs, just to give you an overall view where we are. So let me just, before we go to this localization, challenges in localizing the SDGs. So as you know, Sri Lanka has, in terms of governance, Sri Lanka has two different systems. That is one of the complicated system to understand sometimes for new people, because we have a national administrative system as well as a devolved or not completely devolved political system, but it's partly devolved system from national to provincial to the local authorities. But at the same time, we also have an administrative system from the national government to district district secretariat to the divisional secretariat and to the smallest administrative division in the community, which is called Grama Niladhari division. So we have two systems. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it has its own problems. Right. So in terms of challenges, I'll be just talking about the challenges in this framework. As we know, three pillars of sustainability, social, economic, environment, but we also will have the shocks like social, political, economic shocks, and maybe due to COVID-19 as well, but also in terms of the general the economic crisis. Climate change. Sri Lanka is on a hotspot in the Indian Ocean for climate change impacts, and disasters as a result have been increasing. So within this framework, I'm just going to go through some of the challenges in localizing SDGs. Again, some of the challenges that are in general that have been highlighted in the recent reports as well as from my experience. So the major problem is that SDG implementation efforts are not guided within an integrated framework. So it's sometimes institutionally fragmented. Some people work on one, another institution works on another one, but there is lack of coordination and integrated plan for communities. So that makes the real implementation of achieving the targets and real implementation of SDGs difficult. The data gap is an important issue. The deficit in proper data and then well-informed decision making for proper local policy has been an issue. And lack of technical capacity, know-how at the local authority level, and lack of proper process for implementation. That links from local to national and national and comes down, the policy comes down from national to local, there has been a gap. And the low awareness has been an issue. That is one of the most important issues on SDGs, although government tries to make policies that and link the SDGs and trying to bring it down to the local level. There is lack of awareness on SDGs. Although people sometimes talk of sustainable development, but there is lack of awareness even at the institutional level in the government, and So then it's same also at the local authority level, the local politicians or the kind of people representatives also lack good awareness and capacity. So that will then trickle down to the community level. So there have been some efforts, as you can see. I put one more kind of a challenge. It has been a subject of non-state sector. Sometimes private sector talks about it. NGOs talks about it, but there is lack of real kind of motive at the local authority level, and then so that kind of gap is still there. So there have been some push from the non-state sector, but finally it comes to the people and also people representatives at the governance level. So that gaps is a real challenge. And sometimes the bits and pieces of development, it's people representative find it difficult to articulate the sustainability concept in the overall integrated development planning, and then that will have impact on the financing as well at the local authority level. Although in the post-war context, there is the peace has been there restored, but still there are problems with social cohesion, and still there are some problems of increasing divisions among the communities. And then, as it is common in this part of the world, the short-term gains for social political platforms and developments are driven not by real needs, but it's by more of short-term gains. Finally, as I said, Sri Lanka is also vulnerable to multiple shocks due to climate change, due to other environmental issues. So lack of resilience is another problems to achieve SDGs and localizing the SDGs. Right. So since the focus is on the context of climate change, I just put this slide just to show how vulnerable Sri Lanka is to the climate change. We have floods in most part of the country. We have landslide in the central hill, and poverty is there in comparison, and then chronic kidney disease in north central part of the island, and then scarcity of water is there in some dry zone areas. So this is, if you take almost 75% of the Sri Lankan population is moderately or moderately vulnerable to climate shocks. Yeah, so that's the kind of a context. So as I explained, our risk is very complex. We have climate change risks, as well as due to urbanization and population growth, and there is a kind of a pressure in that area as well, and other environmental hazards in the coastal areas and also in the urban areas, and due to that, then there will be health problems. So that we make the urban areas more vulnerable for living. So risk is very complex. So we need a risk sensitivity in the development initiatives when we do sustainable development. Right, just to touch on the latest commitments. Well, it's sometimes it looks very ambitious, but Sri Lanka has committed to increase its forest cover to 32% and reduce greenhouse gases by 15% in the main sectors. Right. Finally, I think I have a few more minutes to finish, so I will just go through some of the efforts on these local initiatives among youth mainly, and also at the community level. We have started since I come from the engineering faculty, where we have just started to raise awareness on sustainable development goals among the undergraduates and the youths in education institutions, but mainly in the university, where we started to kind of kickstarted the programs on World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development, which is now an annual flagship program where we do a lot of competitions and we talk of regional challenges. And I just recently, last month, published a book in local language on sustainable development goals and challenges, targeting the local government and community institutions to give them an awareness how these SDGs need to be looked at the local level, and what are the challenges and how we can overcome those challenges at the local level in the way forward. And we have been doing some projects, particularly one of the projects on solid waste management, where youth involved on proposing solutions to solid waste management in the cities. So again, think globally, act locally. So some of the engagements, this is actually a personal engagement from me, but then we brought that global engagement to local levels with the youths in the areas where we have developed one project on finding a solution for environmental pollution. So again, we introduced a concept called service learning approach, where the undergraduates do some kind of community solution programs to do some change in the community. So the service learning approach has been used at the undergraduate level to engage them while they are in the university to do some community work. Then again, we reach global through that. Right, so finally, I just put this slide. So what we can do, what we should do. So we have policymakers, practitioners, researchers from different institutions, but the need for increasing dialogue and then cross-disciplinary approaches, particularly on the research as well as in the work that we do. So through cross partnerships and cross-disciplinary approach, we need to go forward. So I think I will. That's it from my side, and I'll stop at this point. And then, yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Saja. Thank you for taking us through the SDGs in Sri Lanka and the challenges, and also very glad to see the local initiatives that Sri Lanka has been doing it, and like we have also, we mentioned this think globally, act locally. So this is the youth, and this is what we need, and we should take this forward. And actually, Dr. Saja has, I think he has some other engagements as well. If participants have any questions, we can have it now, and we can go ahead. If there are no questions, we can go ahead with the other speakers here. We are already, we just have actually 30 minutes left. So anyone, if you have any queries?
I think Moni will go ahead
Yes.
now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we're pressed for time, right?
Yes. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dr. Saja. And are moving on to our next distinguished speaker, that is Dr. Levlin Kehlon, Senior Fellow and Associate Director of Environment Education Awareness Area at TERI. Dr. Levlin Kehlon will be talking about educating youth for SDGs. And Dr. Levlin leads the Environment Education and Awareness Program at TERI. She has a vast experience of working in fields of environment research, outreach, and conservation education. Green Olympiad that I have also mentioned is a major project under her direct supervision. She has experimented and implemented several programs around basic education designs and innovative multidisciplinary ideas for youth and of all the age groups. And catching them young is the motto behind activities designed under the banner of environment education at TERI. And the focus is on channelizing energy of youth towards sustainable development goals. She has over 2 decades of experience and has led several projects with interdisciplinary teams and applied innovative strategies to examine various cross-cutting issues on specifically on environment and sustainability. Botanist by training from Delhi University. Dr. Livlin also has a PhD in environment management from GGS Indraprastha University, New Delhi. She is a member of ESD ExpertNet, which is a leading network of environment educators based in India, Germany, Mexico, and South Africa. Prior to joining TERI, she also worked with WWF India and NISCAIR, NISCAIR, and that is CSIR, in similar capacities. Thank you for joining us today, ma'am. We are very grateful. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Monmi. Thank you for this wonderful introduction, and thank you, Dr. Saja, for showing us the path of SDGs in Sri Lanka. Time is short, so what I will do is I'm going to change what I had intended to talk about, and I will try to limit my points to within less than 10 minutes, okay? So please tell me if I need to be brief or more brief, I can do that. You know, what I want to share with especially the youth and the students who have joined us today is, you hear such strong words like SDGs, education, climate change, South Asia, responsibilities, progress of countries, purpose getting defeated. What is it that comes to your mind when you hear all this, when you are enveloped by all these strong words of responsibility and concern? You become anxious and you start thinking that whatever is being taught is something beyond your grasp. I want to demystify this concept a little. So, you know, when we look at this topic of today's discussion, I was floored by reading this word, transposing SDGs. A person who is from a scientific academic background will immediately understand what is transposing. People who are not from this background will be in awe, like, what is this new terminology that we are using? Let us try to demystify each and everything that is brought to us on a plate, and you will understand finally it comes down to sustainable living. It comes down to what you are doing to your environment and what the environment is doing to you. Transposition is a genetic term. Transposing has come from transposable genetic elements, transposones, for which, like, whoever is interested, you can understand and you can read about the discovery of Barbara McClintock and how it led to a Nobel Prize being conferred to her. So, you know, it is the concept of jumping, it is the concept of moving. And when we are saying transposing SDGs in context of climate change, for me, it has a very, very strong understanding. For me, when I read this word transposing, what comes to my mind is, how are SDGs jumping from one concept sector to the other? And how are SDGs linked to climate change? Are SDGs only linked to climate change, or they have the ability to jump to other goals? Yes, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals is a beautiful web of sustainability. You can very easily categorize them into social, environmental, and economic goals. And you will easily be able to handpick the enablers within these goals. And the enablers are education, enabler is health, enabler, or I said supportive system, is peace, partnership, justice. So this is the environment that is absolutely essential for us to progress towards meeting the indicators set for any of the SDGs. And all these sustainable development goals, if you look at the environment sector, they will touch upon clean air, they will touch upon access to water, they will touch upon access to energy, climate change, waste. So whatever you can think of, and you should not shy away from these words. You should not think about it. This is something that I just cannot understand. It is comprehensible because it is within you, it is just around you. Another thing I would like to tell our youth is, please keep reading about what is happening. Were you aware that in November 2021, the first patient to be diagnosed with the impact of climate change was in British Columbia, Canada? So the diagnostic slip said that you suffer from the impacts of climate change. So, these are very, very interesting examples which can be quoted, which can be connected to what is happening around you. And finally, for youth, by the time we teach you, we enable you to understand SDGs, you take it from me, there will be another league of important terminologies that you'll have to face in your working context. So what then? So what you need now is your adaptive ability to be able to understand what is happening around you and be able to channelize them into work opportunities. I would say, so any goal, be it sustainable development goal, be it a country-driven goal, be it a community-driven goal, unless it ends up into social entrepreneurships, unless it gives value to a person's life, it has very, very minimal impact on a person's life. So all our efforts, when we specifically say the South Asian region, it needs to align with job creation. It needs, of course, to take into account the regional and socio-cultural settings. And we should be able to explore opportunities of investments of financial capital, experience, and supportive policies. Because only when we create this ecosystem for the youth, they will be willing to learn. Nobody wants to invest 3 years, 5 years of their life only on reading textbooks, only on clicking the mouse, going to different knowledge that is available now on the net, and then find out that they don't have a job. So what the youth needs to align with is, of course, linked to education, but it needs to be aligned with green skills. It needs to be aligned with sustainability-driven job opportunities, which have a very, very strong local, regional, socio-cultural priority set in place. So another topic that I want to talk about is, we can debate and discuss, my coordinates are available, we can get into more dialogue, is how sound are our investments in socio-emotional skills, competencies. So what do we want our youth to face? Should they move into eco-anxiety, always worrying of what is going to happen? Or they should be strong enough, they should have some strong emotional resilience, and they should be able to nurture very strong intergenerational bonds. This intergenerational bonds, this topic of connecting to your seniors, being able to connect to your future generations, is something that will provide an answer to several of the problems that the world is facing now. Be it in terms of adaptation to climate change, be it in terms of adapting to or adopting various technologies, be it the nutrition. Now the world is moving towards healthy nutrition. World is moving towards basic tips that create more health resilience amongst the population. And this is through being able to consume, being able to access what is the locally available food, be it millets, be it fruits, be it the processing. So whatever is within you, and if you opt for that, automatically you're reducing your footprint on climate change, related to climate change, because you are not getting into extensive food processing processes. So yes, the future is the youth. please excuse me, I'm giving an example of India, but you can correlate it to the region. In India itself, the proportion of the working age population is expected to increase to 65% in 2036. And it is like every year, millions of people are being added into the working age population. And when they are being added to the working age population, we just cannot limit it to core routine education in which they have to learn. They need to be educated to be able to work. And that is where these are the areas where policies need to realign, green skilling needs to be done, technical training needs to be provided so that the students are able to identify solutions and they're able to have a decent living standard. Another thing, youth are very well connected. And if you go on the social media, the way they work on Instagram, the way they work on different social media handles, it's impressive. And we from our generation are still slow in catching up on these technologies. But when they are connected, the power, the ability to transfer the message is immense. And that is why if we have youth ambassadors, we have all conferences, events opened up to the youth generations, which is happening now. COP26, you see the dialogues and discussions which are centered around youth. Again, the youth ambassadors, the climate change ambassadors across the world, so many of them. You pick up an issue, you connect with the youth, it will definitely get replicated in 1,000-folds. Inter-institutional alliances is again a very, very important step. And the SDSN itself is a very strong example of this alliance. We need to keep connecting and be able to share with each other the progress, the concerns, the problems that we are facing. Because though we are looking at local solutions, but I will say that the problems which are at a global level are almost same in every region. The context will vary. So if there are solutions available elsewhere, we can adapt those solutions and convert them into practical solutions of our area. Another area, like if we are saying education without curriculum is of no value. And we need to say that we have adequate curriculum linkages linking the concepts to sustainability issues. That is where we will provide a holistic understanding about SDGs. They will be able to correlate to SDGs and they will be able to come up to solutions at the community and immediate household levels. So global citizenship competency is linked to the socio-emotional skills, it's linked to global learning spaces. So these are different areas that we need to work around. I will pause here. I look forward to listening to others. And please feel free to get in touch with me, with TERI, with Monmi. And we want to get in touch with everybody over there to be able to make a difference related to sustainable development in all regions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Livleen, for such inspiring words. I'm sure youth will be highly motivated, and which is also which we want and we all are trying to do, and we would want to take your message and move forward. So thank you so much, ma'am, for joining. I think we can take the questions in the end since we have all the speakers in line. So next we have Dr. Abdesh Kumar Gangwar. He's the Director of Programs at Lok Paryawaran Shiksha Sansthan in Uttarakhand, India, who would be talking about educating youth towards sustainability, climate and disaster resilience. Dr. Abdesh, currently, as I mentioned, is the Director of Programs at Lok Paryawaran Shiksha, which is a not-for-profit research, not-for-profit organization. Formerly, he was the coordinator for RC Srinagar and Senior Program Director, Center for Environment Education. His various engagements aim at achieving a sustainable climate, smart and disaster resilient community. He is engaged in empowering villages and urban local bodies towards making their development plans participatory, inclusive, and integrating sustainable development goals in implementation of their development plans. Dr. Gangwar is a board member of the International Alliance for COVID-19 Community Response and has contributed in combating COVID-19 pandemic globally. Research work of Dr. Gangwar and his group has been cited, in the IPCC's fourth assessment report 2007 that also won the Nobel Prize for 2007. He has written over a dozen of books on environment education, co-authored book on sustainable development, and contributed chapters in almost 15 books, and has more than 20 research papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals. And so we are very grateful to have you, sir. And over to you, sir.
Thank you, friends at TERI, Libli, Mormi, Sitara, others. And good to meet Rehan from Bangladesh, Saja from Sri Lanka, and all the participants. Youth is really a very important target group. And if you look at the population of India, we have a sizable youth population, a quite sizable youth population in India. And that's very important. How do we, just a moment.
Sir, if you scroll your mouse, I mean, it would come on the top. If you're looking for the screen sharing button, or yes, you have start. Yes, sir, we can see.
Yeah, right. So I mean, youth is really.
Sorry, maybe you can just minimize. No, so that's fine. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Youth is important, and especially, I mean, India has a quite sizable percentage of youth of its total population. And how do we educate, prepare our youth to live sustainably and become climate and disaster resilient? That's what I will talk to you. Climate change is really a big problem, and which is the increasing population, what we call population explosion, which is as serious as climate change. How we treat on the planet, gently or heavily. More population means we treat more heavily on the planet. And our footprint, our demands, our carbon emission certainly increases. And if we look at this map, which is very frightening, huge population size. And if you look at the Asia Pacific region, which has just 20% of the land area of the globe and 60% population lives there. So the population density is huge. And that is the challenge, how we treat gently on the planet Earth. India, if we look at the moment, we are 1.5 or 1.6 billion people. And population is still increasing. And by the time it stabilizes, we will reach to 5 to 6 billion people. So in India, we need to really prepare, plan for 5.5 or 6 billion people. Globally as well, I mean, we are around 7.8 or 8 billion, and the population is still increasing. We are next to China, but by 2025, we will be beating China in population. So unless we really control population and also the per capita consumption, our footprint is not going to reduce. And this whole problem of environment and certain, all these gamut of issues will continue. Till 70s, we were in harmony with nature. We had plenty. Our requirements, the red in color, and the availability of resources, green, biocapacity we call it. So we had the securities, we had ecological reserves. But after 70s, the population increased, the demands increased, and there is now a huge deficit, ecological deficit. Our requirement is huge because population as well as per capita requirement, whereas the availability of resources has shrunk quite a lot. So all these insecurities, and they manifest in the form of climate change, global warming, deforestation, biodiversity loss, whatever you see, all these gamut of issues, they are the manifestation of the increased handprint. This is a global scenario, same with India. Same with India. This widening gap is all insecurities. And that is true with most of the nations. It's not just India or people in South Asia or Asia Pacific. Across the world, very few countries are having biocapacity more than their footprint. Otherwise, most countries have larger ecological footprint than their biocapacity. Countries like Japan and Korea, they are able to import biocapacity. They do not consume their own biocapacity through export of their technology. They are able to import their biocapacity. And that's how they have been maintaining a good standard of living. But otherwise, I mean, whatever they have in the nation and their consumption level is certainly beyond its overshoot. I mean, we all know that the temperature has risen now in the past century, 1 degree Celsius. And the coming century, there are estimates that by 2.4 to 5 degrees Celsius. And that is the whole debate, whether it was Paris Climate Agreement or now in the Glasgow. How do we keep it not beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius? Temperature rise should not be beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. It's a huge challenge. And where is the climate action? We have been talking, there are goals, there are commitments, but where is the finance, where is the action? That is all lacking. So that's what, but Liblin said, the lifestyles are very important. We need to be responsible. Look at the climate change, how much we contribute to the climate change, and what action do we do from morning till evening to mitigate the climate change. So that's what we have to realize and we have to act upon. Glaciers have been depleted very fast. They have been depleting. There is huge scarcity of water. Rivers have been drying. Streams have been drying. All these security, water, food, the nutrition industries are at stake. And we work in the Indian Himalayan region where we found 3 million springs and 50% of them have dried up. So water and water-related security, entire food production depends on the water, especially in the India or in the South Asian region. That's a huge challenge. Extreme weather events in the recent past, they have increased and they take heavy toll on human lives, to the infrastructure, to all our livelihoods. And they are going to increase further, both in magnitude and in frequency. Sea level has risen and is still rising, so posing serious problems of people have to migrate, they will become refugees, they have to be shifted somewhere, a lot of social problems, a lot of ecosystems will get degraded, saline water will intrude into the agroecosystems. So several issues with sea level rise, both submergence as well as ecosystem degradation. Agriculture will be impacted very seriously. And in the South Asian countries, major GDP employment income comes from the agriculture sector. So is in India. And temperature rise, besides the agronomy, the pollen beatening, the disasters, especially the climate-induced disasters, they will also have very adverse impact on agriculture sector. So not just the temperature rise, but also the climate-induced disasters. So entire food security, nutrition security, employment, income, GDP of the countries who are dependent on agriculture is at stake. Health sector is really very, very serious. Climate change is posing serious health problems. Those who are living in Delhi, North India, have been facing the very poor air quality at the moment. And there is a big fight between Supreme Court directing to the governments, you are not doing enough to control the air pollution in Delhi. So a variety of diseases, vector-borne, new vectors coming, temperature rising, the for tree line going up and etc. So that we have to prepare really ourselves to. A Lancet commission is a very credible commission. They bring out fantastic reports. So they say the children will be worst hit by the impact of climate change. A child born today, his health will not be affected by the adverse impacts of climate change. How do we ensure that is really a tough challenge? And the climate change will lead to infectious diseases, malnutrition, rising food prices. So that is really a big challenge. How do we linking climate change with the health and then trying to mitigate? Another report is the Group 20, Brown to Green report 2019. So what is the mechanism? Where is the finance? What are the commitment? What are the adaptations by these 20 countries? A fantastic report prepared, and that report gives us India ranks highest in loss of lives. So already the mortality rate in India, whether they are children at the age of below 5 years or the elderly population, the road accidents to the climate-induced deaths will be highest in the world, in India. 65% rural India at the moment. We were 71, but huge shift from rural to urban, people have been migrating. But as on today, 65% India is in the countryside, rural. And that is where we have not really focused much, whether it is youth or the general people. And 65% means roughly 1 billion people. 1 billion people are in the countryside, the remaining in the urban side. And of this rural population, 34% is youth in the age group of 15 to 24. And this sector, this 1 billion people, largely depend upon agriculture, animal husbandry, which is again very susceptible to the impact of climate change. So this rural sector is really very insecure because of the climate change, because the livelihood gets impacted. Because of climate change as well as the disasters, both natural and climate induced. And if you look at India, but I'm sure that is true for the entire South Asia, the development has been very lopsided. We have focused more on the cities, but not much in the rural areas. The health, education, infrastructure, transportation, employment opportunities, markets, they are not in the rural areas. As a result, the youth has to come to the cities. And very lopsided, 80% people live just on 20% resources. And 20% people control 80% resources. So that's a pity, unacceptable, and a huge challenge. And we need to really turn it around, equity, equality, and that will lead to sustainable development. But the entire model as on today, youth is getting, the rich is getting richer, poor is getting poorer. And as a result, huge migration to the cities. And those who migrate from rural areas to the cities, they are again a very vulnerable group. Their income is just less than $2 a day. And they live in very unsafe areas. So that adds to further vulnerabilities. And look at the map. India has the highest urban population, and the villages are getting empty. And the people really live in cities in the slums. So this we have to reverse, stop migration from the rural areas to the urban areas. When they come to the urban areas, this whole vulnerability, how so much efforts we have been making towards sustainability, resilience, but then the gap is increasing because huge movement of people. If you look at the progress on SDGs, it is very poor. On most SDGs, and 3 SDGs, it is negative, it is in the regress, right? So already we have not much time left. And SDGs, if you look at India to South Asia, we have focused more on the urban areas. Rural areas, if you ask any rural man, SDGs, he is not aware of. So we have not really educated rural people, the rural youth, rural masses on the SDGs and other global national targets. We need to focus on the rural. In India, we have roughly 250,000 gram panchayats and what we call Panchayati Raj institutions. So the constitution gives you the right, the national government and the state government, and then there is a government which is elected by the people. Every 5 years there is a voting. There is, they are empowered. They have the budget. So how do we empower really the PRIs, the Panchayati Raj institutions, at village level particularly, then also block and district level. So that's a huge challenge. And if we do that, if we are able to empower the villages or the Panchayati Raj institutions, we will be able to reach out to, we will be able to take 65% people into achieving SDGs, other national and global targets. Each village is a sovereign, it's a republic because they elect the government and they make their own development plan, what we call GPDP, Gram Panchayat Development Plan. And that document, if the Gram Panchayat is educated, empowered, they will make their GPDP, what we call it, climate resilient, addressing to the local issues, problems. And if the village is able to cater to the needs, the development needs of the area, the migration will stop, right? So we have not focused much on the village governance, the village republics. If we do that, the migration will be stopped and the vulnerability in the city will stop. And these 65% rural people will contribute to achieving the SDGs and the global target. And we have worked out, except 3 SDGs, 11, 16, 17, rest 14 SDGs, not just 13 on climate change. All these SDGs can very well incorporated into the GPDPs. And that will really help develop the villages as they should be, addressing to the local need, retaining youth there. And maybe there is a reverse movement from the cities to the urban if the villages gets developed. As we said, the climate ready youth, climate literate youth. Literate means understanding the science behind climate change, the social, economic, cultural aspects of it. And then only you can be able to take climate action. And that's what Levlin also said. We need not compromise the comforts we have been having, but the best is at least, and that will help planet to regenerate and we become sustainable. Pandemic has really, I mean, people say this has been, and how do we get out of it? But pandemic has taught us the lockdown for 68 days. What we call the overshoot by 21 days. So that was forced upon us. We had difficulties, but willingly, if we plan and manage just 5 days in a year, we will be by 2050 within one planet living. The overshoot will, and 8 billion people population in India, 1.6 billion. If we all rise up and make a commitment, we will achieve SDGs. We will become sustainable, climate smart, disaster resilient. Nobody can stop us. So that willpower and the commitment has to come. And there is no planet B, we all know. As in today, we require 1.8 planet Earth, which is just not there for us. We have only one planet. And if we do nothing, we will require 2.2 plus. So how do we come to one planet living, which is very possible by 2050, SDGs to all the global targets. And if we empower our youth, we will really be able to do that. But Melinda Gates said, world won't meet its SDGs unless India, and India is all poised to do that. And people look at India, I mean, it's an emerging economy. It's the role model for the whole world. And that's what the Indians have to rise up, especially the youth has a challenge to come to the expectations of the whole world community. And that's what Prime Minister said, when India grows, the world grows. When India reforms, the world performs. And the key to all this, the conversion unit is the Gram Panchayat, which is 65% at the moment. The youth has to stay there. And then we can really, we need to work with the youth, children and the women, reach out to them, take them into our fold, empower them. And we will certainly be able to have a sustainable society, which is climate and disaster resilient. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Avdesh. I think you have rightly said willpower and commitment has to come. So definitely, I mean, with this, we I mean, would like to take your message, and this is for the youth as well, that it's basically the youth. If they act well, then only we can do something for the environment. So thank you so much, Dr. Avdesh. Amira had raised her hand, but Amira, is it fine if you can take the question in the later end? We have our next speaker already here, so we can, I mean, that's the last speaker, so then we can take the questions if there's any. Moving on to our next distinguished speaker, he's from Bangladesh. We have Dr. Muhammad Rehan Dastagir. He's an assistant professor and deputy director at UBET, Institute of SDG Studies, IISS, and RC Greater Dhaka. He will be talking about education on climate action for preparing youths in RC Greater Dhaka, that's in Bangladesh. Dr. Dastagir is a promising name in the environment and sustainability sector of Bangladesh. He is an initiator and advocates of environmental education in Regional Center of Expertise, RC Dhaka, a UN program of education for sustainable development. And this is hosted by UBET University, that is IUBAT. His contribution is in ESD curricular development, green campus movement, and youth involvement. At this moment, he is leading the mandatory ESD program in undergraduate level, and the host institution became one of the UI Green Matrix ranked university. He also guided the youth campaign on environment over 100 schools and colleges as a part of climate education. Graduated in the natural science background from Dhaka University, he was awarded Japanese government scholarship to pursue PhD on environment science in Japan. He's also a selected young scientist by Bangladesh Academy of Sciences in the year 2019. Without any further delay, over to you, Dr. Dastagir.
Okay, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, thank you. So
we can see your screen.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to show my gratitude to TERI for organizing this SDG dialogue. Okay, so let us talk about youth education on climate action for preparing in RC Greater Dhaka. Okay, so far we have learned about a lot of community projects, a lot of activities around the world. But very specifically, our university is working on preparing a curriculum and like a mandatory course, like a education for sustainable development for the undergraduates. So this course has been offered to all students of the university, so that different discipline students they get a 3 credit course for a semester, and then learn about the various content about the environment, because we have understand that the content of environment and sustainability, it's not so easy that it could be learned so easily. It took a lot of time, so they should have given a time. They have been trained in the university, and we are working on some of the attitudes, sustainable attitudes throughout the course, so that our basic target is to change individual an individual, because we believe that an enlightened individual can play the role for the arts. Okay, you all know about, we are talking about youth because, you know, the Global Action Program on ESD that was governed in 2013 have some priority action area like advancing policy, transforming and learning, training, building capacities, empowering and mobilizing youth, and accelerating sustainable solution. So the number 4, basically you need think this is the empowering and mobilizing youth. So this is the policy of the United Nations in the education for sustainable development. That is the key for developing the youth and for the future who will work for the sustainable development. And this is under the network of RC Regional Center of Expertise. There are 181 UN recognized RCs, and here is RC Greater Dhaka. These RCEs are basically work on ESD, education for sustainable development. In our RCEs, like RC Greater Dhaka, we especially work on quality education and work with climate through the education. These are the two basic action areas that RC Greater Dhaka is working at present in its IUBAT Institute of SDG Studies. So these are the timeline. So you have got that RC nominations and started the courses at 2013 as a sustainable course for the undergraduate, and sustainable planning for green campus, grey water use, biodiversity preservation, energy save, youth and environmental volunteering, and ESD projects, and like this. So these are the flow of the work area. So this mandatory course of environmental science and sustainability course is for the undergraduates. It was recognized a unique ESD program in the world in the 10th Asia Pacific RC meeting in New Delhi, where I was been there. And every semester, 500 students are trained for sustainability. So in 24 semesters from 2013, 12,000 students have been trained on ESD. Okay, the attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. The course is to develop sustainability attitudes through knowledge and practice. So like you see that there are different SDGs, and these are the different action areas like SDG 1, 2. So suppose due to time, we see that suppose food waste, cook and eat wisely, do not waste food. This is an attitude that we are trying to build among the students through the course. Water use, grey water improves water sanitation problem. This can be an attitude needs to be developed among the students. Equal opportunity, a better family, workplace and society sustains in equal fair treatment. So these are some of the attitudes. Each of the attitudes are developed in each of the SDG goals, because this is they are the individuals, they work for the SDG goals. So the first thing is that the knowledge, and it requires a considerable amount of time to create knowledge. And we had our case studies that a short course on ESD is not enough within a week or a few days. It needs at least a semester, at least a 3 to 4 month semester. So to give knowledge and to work, build on the attitudes. So how the attitudes are built up? Practices, yes, practices paving sustainability attitude development, because the practice makes perfect, the practice prepares the behavior. Okay, in any organization or any institute which have provided the things like save energy, recycling, and water uses, then the students learn. Because maybe it is true that in this country, still people do not have the clear idea about recycling, waste separation, why the energy should be saved, or what is grey water recycling. These ideas are not clear. This in the context of Bangladesh, both in the urban or the rural areas. So these ideas should have to be clear at first. Suppose like using the natural lights and air in the classroom, and like a green campus, solar energy, like this. So for working on our sustainability, our university got a UI Green Matrix Index. That was an organization based in Indonesia, and they have been given like hundreds of university as working as for sustainability, and our university got this ranking from this. Another program is like a volunteering school program. So here you see that if this is an university, these are the surrounding schools about a radius. So where these schools, these are sample schools where our students have voluntary ESD campaign. So here you see that those students, they are preparing for taking a lecture. So every semester, the students have to visit, a group of students has to visit at least one school and take one lecture in front of the students. So these are the undergraduate students, so they had the confidence to give a lecture on environment to the school students. And these are the school students, and we have found that these students are very confident and very successful to conduct this voluntary school program. More than 100 schools in a year, but due to the corona situation, this program has just postponed. We hope that the next year, if the situation is good, we will start this voluntary school program. One of these schools I have visited with them, and I was amazed that these students, they are my students, they could operate a seminar, and I was not given any speech there, and successfully in this school of more than 200 audience. So the thing is that this program, we are focusing on individual development, because whenever we want to think about the community, but the individual has to be built first, because the paving constructive learning, as a student has to involve and lead the process of real school, because the pedagogy that is used here is the constructive pedagogy. It is characterized by learners' engagement, social interactions, and learners' behavioral psychology. Here, learners actively create their own knowledge rather acquiring it. So because whenever they has to visit any school, they has to take one class, they take all the challenges and they revise their learning and they practice this in the schools. So we have some few community program in the our areas near the slum area of our university, where the student give the lessons of the decomposable and non-decomposable wastes first, and taken any slum under the guidance of the university. And we also have the nationwide art champion program, and in our university is one of the partner with the art champion program, and also we have sustainability challenge program in Bangladesh. So if you see that, I just read these sentences of the getting climate ready. This is a recent a guide for school on climate actions. This is the UNESCO, our RC Cater Dhaka, we have just got this project from the UNESCO for the translation of a small book for how an school become a model for preparing the society for climate action. So if I just read these lines, these are wonderful. Education for sustainable development and climate action. The far-reaching global consequences of climate change make it clear that ESD must include a strong climate action component. Schools have a central role to play in helping learners understand the causes of climate change so that they can make informed decisions and take appropriate actions. And in acquiring the necessary values and skills to participate in the transition to more sustainable lifestyles, green economics, sustainable and climate resilient societies. So we definitely agree this, and this is just the same kind of thing we are working in our institution. So I just recall one of my experience when I visited New Delhi in 2007, and it was a wonderful experience of the 10th Asia Pacific meeting, and I have learned a lot, and I would like to also thanks TERI for organizing such this event. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inspiring words, sir, and thank you so much for taking us through, the initiatives and the challenges that Bangladesh has been, facing. So once again, I would like to thank all the speakers for inspiring the youth to, contribute towards sustainability. It was, a very perfect session for all of us, and hope you all had a learning experience as much as I did. And with this, we come to an end of the SDG dialogue. I wanted to just wanted speakers to, if you could just switch on your camera, we can take a group photo before we, conclude with the vote of thanks. So maybe you can stop sharing it, Dr. Mohammed.
Okay, so please. Okay.
Yes, I think we can take everyone. I think even the participants. I mean, everyone. If you could just switch on your video.
Yeah. Cheese.
So I would like to tell Dr. Muhammad and Dr. Abdesh that, so the SDSN Youth Network, we have many, networks. So South Asia comprises of mainly Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal. We also have, SDSN Youth, other networks, which are, we have network coordinators here from Indonesia, we have from New Zealand, we have from, Australia, South Korea, and, so thank you all so much for joining. And to be easy, if you all also could switch on your video, we can just take a group photograph. No problem, easy, it's fine. You don't have to switch on your cameras. Okay, so she has messaged that it's late in Australia, so we consider that. Yeah, Sitara, if you are also there, anyone representing youth team in SDSN?
Okay, wait, let me turn on my camera.
Thanks, Toby. Thank you. Let me just take a print screen. Yeah. Wait, let me just take one more. Okay, I think I have captured it. Okay, and I think others are live from, workplace as well. So thank you all so much for joining. And with this, like I mentioned, we come to an end of the SDG dialogue. So SDG dialogue will be happening, starting from South Asia, and we would be going on to the other networks as well. So where Toby Easy would be, hosting it, and we would, like to be, Amira is also there, so we would like to be a part of it. And I would just want to, give a formal, propose a vote of thanks in this occasion. I, on behalf of SDSN Youth South Asia, and the SDSN Youth Global Team as well, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the honorable speakers who blessed us with their presence and, took out the valuable time. I also want to express my sincere thanks to Dr. AMS Saja for his efforts, in localizing the SDGs in Sri Lanka and the challenges. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation for Dr. Abdesh, for inspiring youth towards sustainability, climate, and disaster resilience. Further, we are also grateful to Dr. Muhammad Dastagir for sharing the role of education on climate action for preparing youths, especially in RC Greater Dhaka, that's in Bangladesh. A big thank you to Dr. Livleen for talking about the role of youth in SDGs and inspiring youth to take bigger roles. We are all inspired by your great words. Well, and even cannot happen overnight. And so I extend my thanks to the entire team of SDSN Youth, and especially my colleagues in Asia Pacific region for the enormous support in the organization of the SDG dialogue. I have Sitara here, so thank you so much. We have also been fortunate enough to be backed by my team at TERI, that is Dr. Livleen. And lastly, I cannot thank everyone who have attended the SDG dialogue via Zoom meeting or via workplace, and where actively they are a part of the session. So thank you for being with us this evening. It's been a great pleasure, and we look forward to other SDG dialogues in the other networks as well. So thank you so much all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye everyone.